We are weeks into the 30th anniversary content for Destiny 2. While I've been having a blast with the new content, there have been a couple things that I definitely find annoying. But we'll get to each of those when we talk about each item. Let's first start with the new dungeon. Grasps of Avarice was actually my first dungeon that I did on release. And boy, I could say that was a blast. I would love to see Bungie to try to develop more on this side. That side being fun and not hard in any means. The jump scares, booby traps, and the exotic engram mechanics made the experience much more enjoyable for me. I enjoyed having the dungeon consist of different enemy types with the Hive and the Fallen because I believe this is the first endgame content to truly do something like that, outside of like the Hive and Taken since they're very similar. Having the two different enemy types makes it so you don't get annoyed with a certain mechanic for too long, which is always a pleasure. The Sparrow section was top tier. It was getting a little frustrating, but anything can be like that if you have to do it multiple times and you don't know why you're failing the section. But it was a masterpiece. The first time I saw the skull rock gave me goosebumps. As far as the loot goes, I'm not entirely sure yet. I haven't messed around a whole bunch. I'm loving my Luna roll that I've got. Absolutely love the Thorn armor set, especially the master mode, which I've yet to do unfortunately. Gives you the extra, like the artifice slot for an extra artifact mod slot, which is amazing. It's going to be so nice next season. But the only weapon that, like I said, that I've gotten to try is Luna, and that's the only one with everything with Matador, 1,000-yard stare, that's reprised. Sure, there's some slight changes here and there to how they work. Luna is now stasis and everything. The only new one is the sword. And personally for me, I was never a huge fan of 1,000-yard stare. I love my Matador, but from what I've played around with it, it does not feel the same at all. Next up is Dares of Eternity. This has a lot of like the Sundial Menagerie vibes to it. 2 rounds with different enemy types each time and then a boss fight. The 2 rounds that I end up having the most fun with because they're going to be unique each time. You get special power-ups and it's almost impossible to fail a section. There's a timer, but I have no clue what happens if you do fail. But I'm confused with the actual enemy type. Spin a wheel. The wheel has the enemy types on them. Fallen, Vex, Hive, Taken, and Cabal. Where the hell's Scorn? Like, we know they aren't going away with Forsaken because they're using it in the Dreaming City a lot. We know that it's going to be in Witch Queen. I was thinking that maybe the Scorn would make their entrance in week 2 and swap out with a different enemy type. That didn't happen. Same thing with the boss fights. It's random between Hive, where you fight Crota, again, Cabal to fight Ballista Arc, first time in Destiny 2, and Vex to fight Zydron, again. I was fully expecting to get new boss fights going into week 2, and even after I was still expecting it. Especially since we see the pop-up in game that tells you about the next week said, fight new enemies in Dares of Eternity. And nothing changed. The boss fights probably should have been balanced out a bit in terms of how they play and how often you get certain ones. Like, I know it's full RNG, but damn, doesn't feel like that. As far as how they play, Crota is again normal Crota, where you can only do damage with a sword, so you can't burn the boss. But it makes it more of a chore in my experience so far. For whatever reason, like I'm one that I don't want to just bake a boss, but you limit to one certain mechanic. Ballista Arc is the most fun in my opinion, probably because we haven't fought him in years since Destiny 1, but you do a chunk of damage, and then you get more of like a true horde section real quick, and then you can burn him after, so it doesn't feel like you're limited to one way. And like I said, different mechanics built into it. Now, Zydron. God, I've seen more of them than I do the rest of my life already. Like, I'm done with them. Mostly since this is who I fought the most by far for some reason. Like, it was constant, like, Zydron, Zydron, Zydron. But the fight is super boring. To start the fight, you have to avoid 2 walls. Wow, how fun. Kill some ads and then 2 champions. Take down his shields, and then for the most part, you can burn him before he does the wall trick again. That doesn't make it interesting at all. So I'll iterate. Again, you have Crota, who is a chore. Ballista Arc, who is fun. I know clanmates disagree with that one. And Zydron, who is boring again. Another reason I could be having more fun with the Ballista Arc one compared to the other 2 is because the other 2 have been used in Nightmares 2 years ago with Shadowkeep. They've done their time in the spotlight, and now, especially with Crota, I feel like if Crota's End does come back sometime next year, I won't be as excited as I should be because Crota is going to be like played out by then. We used him as Nightmare. We used it as a main boss fight in the last mission of Shadowkeep. We have Crota's End. We have him in Dares of Eternity. Like, it's just so much at this point. But overall, I would have loved to see some sort of Taken or Fallen boss fights that rotate on a weekly basis. Like, why just limit yourself to 3 boss fight options when there's 5 main enemy types? I get that maybe not Fallen because you have the dungeon, but not everybody's going to play the dungeon. In Taken, throw in a Taken Ogre or something. Like, you could have made something. Like, oh, what the guy's name from Last Wish. You know who I'm talking about. As far as the rewards go, they're okay. Initially, I did enjoy the battle rifle after I got used to the scope since it's different. I was enjoying that sawed-off shotgun and the trace rifle the most simply because it was a legendary trace rifle and I didn't have to sacrifice a legendary or an art exotic slot for that. I haven't messed around with the grenade launcher. I'm not a huge fan of it. Got both swords. Didn't overly impress me. Obviously, you have the Eager's Edge side of things, but haven't used it, have no reason to. I do enjoy how you rank up. You have the chest that you can unlock in the treasure room. Mostly, I wanted, I have it at this point, Zer's Rock Ship. I swear, that is the most unique thing we have ever had in Destiny. Like, ever. I wish they do more of it, but I do wish that they made like the flying visuals of it less like a ship, because you can tell it follows that same pathway and a little bit more like a rock. But we'll take it. But by far, the best piece of Dares is that Zer, Creepy Tentacle Man, is a game show host with some weird sort of cosmic horse. So, you know, like, that all makes sense. Moments of Triumph were also released at the same time as the 30th anniversary. And once again, slightly annoyed with the triumphs required to get the seal. Now, you don't have to do all of them, but I am annoyed. A couple of them require you to do full endgame content. Like, you can do 4 Master Lost sectors, because you know you want to do that. The easiest one of them all is the winning 7 rounds of trials. I think initially I was annoyed with this because I read 7 rounds as 7 games. I was like, that's whack. But then once I actually did, I was like, oh, it's just rounds. You can get it done fairly quickly, especially if you're in a good team. But, you know, trials is trials at the moment. Like I said, you can skip 2 of them to still get the seals, and those would usually be the 2 that I would skip. Still hurts for some people that prefer to play the game solo. I did use trials freelance, so that helped. And if people play solo, they won't have the triumph score. I don't even have the triumph score needed to get that triumph. So it kind of sucks for the solo side of things. Other triumphs are completion of Deepstone Crypt, completion of Grasp of Avarice, that's a mouthful sometimes, and a completion of Vault of Glass. I get it. They all happen in the year, but maybe don't require it for this sort of thing. Be like, hey, get this exotic. Get this one. Complete these seasonal activities, which I think they did have in there. I feel like this endgame stuff, I don't know if it should necessarily be included in it. Like I said, I'd love to see next year remove these kinds of requirements and add more of the story and seasonal stuff into it. I will say, at least the 2 raid triumphs were retroactive, unlike last year's. That was a bitch. I would like to see moments of triumph be expanded upon in the future, because it's pretty much just complete these things and you get the seal and title. Nothing else in the game that's worth it per se. It was kind of nice when Moments of Triumph came out alongside of Solstice of Heroes, so they kind of played hand in hand with each other. But it is a little weird for Moments of Triumph to be coming out with the 30th anniversary, I feel. Also, why the hell would you give the Moments of Triumph emblem to Ava Levante and not just a drop when you complete the seal? That makes no sense, because I forgot about the emblem and I didn't pick it up. Speaking of Space Grandma, the Dawning. It needs a massive, massive rework again. All it is go bake cookies. If you're lucky enough to have the ingredient drop, which is a whole freaking different conversation, oh my god. Complete the triumphs and get an exotic ship. That doesn't even do anything special compared to years past. It's purely cosmetic. Even the rewards that you get in return for cookies are trash. Oh, hell yeah. Blues and weapons I'm going to scrap for shards? I love it. Thanks, Zavala. No, bullshit. Especially now that we might have blues auto-dismantle. I think seasonal events are at their best when you have something special to go after. Like an exotic weapon of sorts. Otherwise, in my mind, they're just pointless, and I'd rather have them removed to use that time on something else. Yes, they did include the snowballs. And they have stasis and they can kill. But it's only in certain locations, so it was kind of annoying. I feel like you have to get so many snowball kills, but they're not all over the place. So in order to get that triumph, which I didn't bother doing, you had to go do certain things. That I have a whole Dawning video that's going to come out, so just stay tuned for that one. But I hope at this point Dares is pretty much enough to hold us over until the next month, until Glitch Queen comes out, because we've already had the slow catch-up month in November. But it's probably going to be another slow month until we get to, I think, the 1st of February. So when people are speculating the rest of Season of the Lost story to finish. But guess we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Guardians, stay safe.